Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Todd Mayo.
Thanks for coming out. God, it's weird to be sitting behind on this stage with lights in my eyes. This is not my thing. I'm definitely behind the scenes kind of a person. So it's interesting. I can't even see anybody. Is this how it works when people are on stage?
This is how it works when people are on stage.
Okay.
It makes it easier.
All right. Well, thank y'all for coming. I wrote a book, and it was 2020, right there in the heart of the COVIDs. And how many of you people have been to Bluegrass Underground or to the Caverns before COVID shut everything down? Anybody? Just a couple of y'all had done that. So it was a real trying time for us. It was on a Thursday, and the whole world kind of stopped, but certainly the live music and sports world, the people, live business and people stopped. And we thought it was just going to be for a couple of weeks. And so we were rescheduling shows, and then it became pretty evident after maybe, I don't know, it was March, it was ending, that we had essentially canceled our entire year. And, you know, we're not a corporation, it's me. I started the Caverns, I'll tell y'all a little bit about that, but, you know, the good thing about a corporation is you can kind of maybe have some deep pockets to overcome something like that. But I didn't, and, you know, I don't really own the Caverns, even to this day. The bank owns it. You know, I have to pay the bank. And so, you know, I've signed personal guarantees on everything. And so I was sitting around just thinking, you know, I'm going out of business. This is it. And I'll give you a visual demonstration of what it's like to own a music venue in a global pandemic. Look at my hair. And I used to have hair. It used to be, look at Larry Nager's hair. Larry, just look at the pompadour. It's freaking amazing. I never had Larry Nager hair, but I had pretty damn good hair. And I guess, you know, if you'd owned the cave, you'd be looking like me, you know. But anyway, it was tough. And it was, you know, it was a tough time. And so I started writing this book, and I write in the book, I compare it to my brother Denton, my older brother. And he is always looking backwards. He has a heavy nostalgic streak, and he was just born that way. And I'm always looking forward. And so I say about Denton that, you know, all he ever wanted to be when he was 5 was 4 again, just one more day. And we all know people like that, you know. And it's like there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm not that way. And so upon reflection, during those COVID times, I just started writing this book, and I wrote about my life. And it was kind of from the perspective of, here I'm living my dreams. Here I found my purpose. You know, I'm living this enchanted, magical, mythic life, and it's just so wonderful. And it's all going away. And instead of crying about it, you know, I'm just going to find some peace about it and some joy. And so I went all the way back to the beginning. Well, not conception, but birth, you know, not total beginning, but...
I remember the sperm chapter.
And I left that out of it. And I wrote about my life, and I kind of just thought, well, what was I thinking, and what was I feeling, and what happened? And then, as I wrote it, what is really remarkable is that I was spending my mornings in the past, but I was spending my afternoons in the present. And that present really led to our future and to how we're here and why we're here today, because we were shut down, but there's this other cave called Big Room Cave. How many of y'all have taken a tour down there yet? Yeah, it's freaking awesome. And so if you haven't, go do it. But when we first found the Caverns here, there was this hole in the ground, and I was like, where does that go? And they're like, oh, that goes into Big Room Cave. And so we went down in there, and I was like, we got to open this thing up. So while we couldn't do concerts, we were opening up Big Room Cave for people to tour it.
But when you say opening up Big Room Cave, it's not, you know, you opened the door and walked in. I mean, you basically built out, and you had to.
We did something nobody's ever done. Since 1950 something, nobody had actually created a show cave, because the cave existed, but that place where you walk down in, that just looked like a parking lot. So we had to like figure out, it's a whole story how we had to do that, but we did it. And then one day I was in this cave walking out, and we didn't furlough anybody. We said we're all going to become tour guides. So everybody that worked for the company, we did tours. I loved it. We all loved it. And it wasn't really that it made us a lot of money. We were still hemorrhaging money and going out of business, but it at least gave us something to do and some purpose and some meaning. And so it was very, it was wonderful. And so I came out of this cave one afternoon, and a guy called me. It was Jason Isbell's booking agent. And he said, Todd, have you seen what they're doing in the Gisborne Park in the UK? And I said, no. He sent me a picture of it. He said, it looks like outside there at the Caverns, and maybe you should try that. And I said, wow. And so there's another Todd, a guy named Todd Gerald, that's my business partner in the PBS production of the show, the Cavern Sessions. But then there's now another Todd. I seem to collect them. But Todd Smith is a local Grundy County Todd, and he was standing out there, and he's a real can-do kind of a dude. And so, you know, that whole amphitheater, y'all, that we're all enjoying so much, it looked like the forest. It wasn't cleared. It was big, huge rocks. And I said to Todd, and Todd Smith is the kind of guy that when he says something, he'll say, now I'm just talking. And what he means is, you ought to listen. And then other times he'll say, now a man can do this, and a man can do that. And so I said, what do you think, Todd? And he said, well, I'm just talking. And I said, go on. And he said, well, a man can take them big trees right there and fell them down and make a nice little logging out of it. A man can take them little trees, make a big old burn pile. And a man can get a bunch of excavators out here and pick them stones up. I know them geologist fellas say they're tethered to the ground, but I expect they're not. I think what we ought to do is do this right here, and then we'll do this. And we got dirt over here yonder. I know most of it's red clay, but we got good dirt. Well, a man can bring about 5. Now I'm just talking. Go on. A man can bring 500 truckloads of dirt and tear out an amphitheater, and a man can lay this, and a man can do that. When I'm just talking, and a man can. And so finally, when he gets done, I said, not this man, but maybe you. And so that's the truth. That's the reality to the Caverns. Is an incredible team of people, and I do, kind of visualize things sometimes. You know, I'm head in the sky, feet on the ground, but I'm not the one that really makes them happen. And the people that do are the ones that have done all of this. And so while I was writing that book, to kind of come back to that, all of these things were happening. And so when we got done, we did during the COVID times, we did these social distant, pod-based amphitheater seating, you know, everybody had the elbow room or whatever. And when we got sort of through the COVID times, we were like, my God, we've got a gorgeous amphitheater on our hand. My God, we've got a campground on our hands. My God, we need to do a music festival. And so that's how Cave Fest was born. And that's it. And it was just like, it all came out of such darkness and negativity, and that's a decent segue, I guess, into my life and the book, because my life has been far from perfect, and one of the challenges one of the things that when I wrote this book, I wasn't intending to publish it. I just did it for myself, and just to kind of make sense of the journey I had been on. But when I did decide, well, I guess I'm going to put this out there and people are going to read it, I didn't edit anything out of it. And there's lots of stories in there. And
the original version was how long?
It was 200,000 words. And this one is 100,000. So there was editing of the book, but not editing of the tales I tell on myself, I guess I should say. There's a lot of stuff in there I'm not proud of. And there's been a lot of darkness in my life in different ways, which makes me no different than everybody here.
And I think that's having read the book and having known you as long as we have had over 16 years at this point, there's, like all of us, I think we all have childhoods that we're still trying to figure out and work forward from. And mine, for some reason or other, I always want to know how things got to be the way they are, because I was very confused about what was going on in my family. But you had a very big, kind of messy family, and you've been creating families ever since. I mean, you drew a team around you in Bluegrass Underground back in the old Cape, and what you've done here, I'm still flabbergasted every time I see this place.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine building this yourself? I mean, we've all had weekend projects, but I mean, I'm going to make a cave this weekend.
Yeah,
That's insane.
it was it was crazy, and it is like a family, Larry. And I do remember when I sent you the book. Larry lives in Hawaii, but I spent a lot of time in Middle Tennessee and in Memphis. And but Larry said, "Todd, I thought you always told me you had a happy childhood, or a great childhood," I think he said. And I said, "I did." He goes, "Yeah, but I just read your book, and your best friend was killed in front of you, hit by a school bus when you were 5. Your dad went to jail when you were 10. Your parents got divorced when you were 11. In between, you were evicted from your dad's house, kicked out of your mom's house. You went to prison. There's the FBI. We haven't even got into the hurricane and the pirates and all sorts of scams."
I believe the question was, how are you still alive?
I think that's what she said. And so I said, "Yeah, it was great," But the book is, and there's a lot about the Caverns and how it all came to be. So in one sense, it's an exterior journey of like, yeah, how does all this come together? But in another sense, it's an interior journey of literally finding courage out of fear and finding purpose and persevering through life and just poor choices you make. And things, some things happen to you that you can't control, but, I'd say most of the things that have happened to me in my life that were not that pleasant were probably self-inflicted type situations.
But that's a story, I think, that runs through every successful person and every unsuccessful person, too, is the idea of what you do with failure, what you do with the times when you're just knocked to the ground, and what happens then. And that's the difference between success and failure, is what you do at that point.
Well, I believe that. And also, if you read the book, and I'll sign anybody out there when we're done with this or whatever. We'll have the book for sale, or you can get it on Amazon. There's even an audio version that I recorded. But after I had written it, I started really getting deep into mythology and realizing how mythic my life really was. And as an example that I sort of compare it to, there's a great mythologist named Joseph Campbell, and he's been dead a long time, but he studied like all the mythology of all the world's religions and myths and everything, and he found all of these themes that run through almost all of them, whether it's Cherokees that are here, or people in India or Africa or Asia, Native Americans, in Europe. And he wrote a book called The Hero's Journey. And The Hero's Journey, they have these sort of 12 different steps that he identified in like so many works of literature and myth. And I sat there when I was writing that book, and it was towards the end, and I looked at it, and there's all these different ones. And I think the 6th one is Journey to the Inmost Cave. And it's all about how people in a lot of these stories go inside a cave and find some kind of a treasure. And he meant it metaphorically. And a lot of people that write these myths, they mean it metaphorically. But for me, it was metaphor, but it was also literal. I mean, it literally happened. I literally went into a cave, one man, and I came out another. And I write about that in the book. And then if you look at all the other steps, they all kind of correspond to my life. And then a great truth occurred to me. It's not just me, it's everybody. And everybody's sitting here, we're all living our own hero's journey. We all have these sort of mythic, archetypal situations. And I write in the book about how and when that was kind of revealed to me, or where I had the epiphany. And I won't go too deep into it because, hey, you'll have to read the book, right?
You've got a segment you want to read.
But yes, there was a very. I do have something to read here. How are we doing on time?
Well, let's see. Well, the boss said we could go over.
Well, we don't want to do that. I want to have some Q&A time or whatever.
If you've never heard of Joseph Campbell, you know people who've been inspired by him, because one of them was George Lucas, and Star Wars is filled with that kind of information that he got from the hero's journey. The whole bit with Yoda going into the swamp, and you know, I mean, if you know Star Wars, you might have heard of it. There's, the Joseph Campbell myth.
Absolutely. So I picked out a passage to read from it because it's in that monomyth. There's something called ordinary time, and that's the person's life up until the time when things change. And so the book goes back and forth through time. It actually starts out. The book starts out in the first chapter in 2018. And when you come into this room, there's a side passage. So Big Mouth Cave, which is where the music venue is, there's another cave that runs along that way. And it was opening night of the Caverns, and Billy Strings was playing. And y'all won't believe this, but it was only like 415 people paid to see Billy Strings. Nobody knew Billy back then. I did, and it was a PBS taping. But I was sitting there, and I was in the dark, and I was kind of reflecting on, my God, Todd, how did this happen? You know, how did this is amazing. And so that's kind of where the book starts, but it goes back and forth in time. But this is the end of a chapter, and the chapter is called Taking the Wheel. And there's kind of a metaphor because there's another chapter that's called Riding Shotgun in the Fuck It Mobile. And that's a dark chapter when you get to that chapter, because I, as a teenager, developed a fuck it mentality, and it was not positive. And so I just, it's weird for somebody who later in their life, I've had all these amazing serendipitous things happen that some of them I write about. And I like to say, I've said before, what's the difference in providence, happenstance, coincidence, synchronicity, or fate? I don't think there is a difference between those things. I think it's, if you're somebody that's coming from a psychological perspective, it's a synchronicity. And if you're a religious perspective, it's providence. And if you're agnostic, it might just be a coincidence, But I don't believe in coincidence.
Some might put it, just fuck it.
Right. Well, that's right. And fuck it, exactly. But I used to think I had a dark cloud over my head. I lived a life of such yearning and not doing, and it was just, and so to have a juxtaposition between somebody who's really just mired in self-doubt, and I've always kind of had a Walter Mitty thing going on, daydreamer or whatever, but then, to see where, that's really what I was trying to write about. So there's sort of like a BC AD in the book, and this little chapter, a little piece of the chapter that I'm going to read is literally when everything changed. So here we go. As 2001 dawned, I was 28 years old, about to be 29. And one way of looking at it, I'd lived an ordinary life. My parents, like those of half the kids I knew, had gotten divorced. We were latchkey kids. We rode bikes, played sports, and even had a fort. I got my heart broken and maybe broke a couple myself. Got into a few fights and won some, but I lost some too. I loved music, movies, video games, and reading. And maybe not everybody had a Z scar on their left shoulder from wrestling a carny in barbed wire, but in many ways, much of my first 28 years on Earth was a cliche. By the same token, or on the other side of the coin, I had been on a path to find myself and my purpose, and it had not aligned. I still hadn't found what I was looking for. I had been to jail and in the ICU in a mental hospital. I'd been kicked out of my mom's house and evicted from my dad's. I had not graduated high school or college.
I escaped the FBI to paradise only to have the worst hurricane in 50 years drown my dreams of an island life on island time. There was always some scammy bullshit that was orbiting around me. I had not had a serious relationship based on love with anyone as an adult, and I got my first car 10 years after most people. I had built a literal and metaphoric fort against growing up, and I yearned on a daily, even hourly basis for some purpose that would give real meaning to my life. My only skill seemed to be the gift of gab, and I yearned to use it for more than making money on anything, whether helping a small business get more customers or helping a money-hungry snake oil salesman get filthy stinking rich. I had taken deep inward journeys inside myself with psychedelics and with meditation, and seen that I was everything and nothing at the same time. I contained multitudes, and guess what? We all do. Me and everybody else. Carl Jung wrote of the 12 archetypes: the ruler, the creator, the sage, the innocent, the explorer, the rebel, the hero, the wizard, the jester, the everyman, the lover, and the caregiver. I had been all of them, and I couldn't say I was any more one than the other. My personality was quantum. Something was about to happen that would change everything, and my life would begin to take on mythic qualities. Only by looking back on it can I see that I was on a heroic journey, and that reality and myth would entwine inside and outside of time for me. It was epic. Everyone is the hero of their own life, of their own stories. Joseph Campbell wrote about the monomyth, where in every culture across time and space, again and again, reality and myth and story follow the same path. The first stage of the hero's journey is their ordinary world. This is where I spent the first 28 years of my life. My life was ordinary in the sense that even though I had spent 28 years experiencing and learning and growing and making some mistakes over and over and maybe learning from a few others, it was not truly mythic in the sense that it wasn't literally corresponding within real time to mythic archetypes, which are the foundational elements of transcendent purpose in life. And that was about to change. The second stage of a hero's journey is the call to adventure. In the mythic world of the hero's journey, the call comes from an external source. In reality, my mythic journey was internal. It was a call from deep inside the caverns of myself. I woke up on the afternoon of January 28th with a terrible hangover and an aching body. What in the hell had happened? There aren't many worse feelings than drinking to such excess that everything is foggy or you just black out. The last thing I remembered was being at the Box Seat, a sports bar in Green Hills in Nashville. We'd gotten together to celebrate my sister Katie's 21st birthday. There was a bartender she knew there, and I remember just her giving me free mixed drinks. Beer? That's okay for me, but spirits are dangerous. I knew better, but what the hell, they were free, and it was her 21st birthday. That's all I really remember. I somehow got out of bed and went downstairs, and my buddy Travis filled me in. There was a huge fight at the bar involving our group, and my brother Justin smashed a chair over some dude's head like something out of a movie, and the police were called, and we all just got the fuck out of there. The reason I was so sore was that I had come out of my room before going to bed and fallen down the stairs. Travis said I could have broken my neck. I got up, walked back up those stairs, crawled back into bed, and wallowed for the rest of the day in the misery that my choices had delivered. That night, I got out of bed, and I got down on my knees, and I prayed to God to show me the way. I know I'm not living the life I'm supposed to be living, I said out loud. I know that my free will and my choices are keeping me from my fate. Please show me the way. I don't want to just live life in a circle. I want to be on a path that leads somewhere. I'm ready to go. Please, Lord, show me the way. I got up and went back to bed. It was January 28th, the day I used to fear. It was the day our house had caught on fire in 1985, and the day the space shuttle blew up in 1986. That day was the turning point of my life. There was a doorway, and I was about to discover it and walk through it towards a road that goes ever on. And so that's that chapter, or the end of one chapter.
Is it?
And if you read the
the book, you'll see the next chapter is where, things really did change for me. And,
Yeah. Well, I think there's, Todd is a Memphis boy. I think that's a driving force in him. I was a music editor at the Commercial Appeal of the Daily Paper there for years and got to know a lot of the folks there. This was back in the 90s. Rufus Thomas was in the phone book. It was that kind of casual town. But it's a great storytelling town. And Todd, when I'm meeting Todd, there's echoes about him that remind me of Sam Phillips, the guy who had Sun Records and discovered Elvis. And Sam, we became good enough friends, he did the forward to my book about Memphis music. But the one thing Sam said that stuck with me through the years is the same thing I see in Todd. And that Todd, Sam would say the blessing in his life was he found exactly what he was meant to do. And I think Todd Mayo did as well. And a big part of that is bringing people together and creating some magic. And it is, if you get the right people together, you get the right kind of magic. And I think you've done that here and outside.
Thank you, Larry. I will say this funny about bringing people together. When y'all walk out of the cave today, shut the doors and look at the magic doors that my buddy Rob Morrow built. But when I was in college up at the University of Tennessee, go Vols, beat Florida tonight, I used to be an instigator. And I just used to love to, before I really found out what brought people together, I used to just love to see what drew them apart. And I would say to people, literally, we'd be at a party or whatever, and I'd say, what church do you go to? Who'd you vote for in the last election? And what do you think about OJ? Now talk amongst yourselves. And I just light the fire, and I would see how politics and race and religion divided people. And of course, that's only gotten worse. That was back in the early 90s. But music brings people together. And when we started the Caverns here, I wanted that to be said. And, we're in Cherokee Indian territory. And there was a great Cherokee Indian named Sequoia. And he taught his people he wanted them to learn how to read and how to write. And so he invented an alphabet. And so we partnered with the Sequoia Birthplace Nation and the Cherokee Nation to have a phrase inscribed in those doors. And it says, "Welcome to the Caverns, where the Great Spirit brings all people together through music." And, that's what music does. That's what we're celebrating here this weekend. We all are one, it's just a fact. And it's a wonderful fact of life. And just, thank you all for coming and traveling and spending your well-earned money and your hard-earned time, to just experience the beauty of music and fellowship and being together. And God knows, if you walk by out to the campground, there's this girl, her name's Gaia. I guess that means Mother Earth, somebody told me, but she's doing this whole fairy fort, and it's just like little spontaneous things happen. There's the Naked Man incident, I won't go into that, but there's so many different cool things that happen at Cave Fest, and it's just become my favorite weekend of the year.
I apologize for that. I wish you would keep bringing it up.
Yeah, do we have, because we said we do a Q&A, if anybody has any questions about specific things, of, anything, happy to answer that. Somebody's got a hand raised, go ahead.
Hi, y'all. First, I'd like to say that thank you so much. I hope you've heard 1,000 times, you've heard 10,000 more. Thank you for all of this. My first question is, thank you, guys.
Thank you. I'll applaud that. I appreciate it.
A couple quick hit questions for Mr. Nager. Larry, who's your favorite musician you've ever played with, interviewed, and seen in person? 3 answers, and you got it.
Okay, well, that's a tough one, because Todd's not that much of a music geek. He's more of a people geek. I'm insane about music. So Salva Wapiti was the greatest Hawaiian steel guitar player ever. But I'll tell you, I never interviewed him. My favorite interview, and I think a person who pivoted everything after them, was Jerry Garcia. And ultimately, amazing songwriter, amazing band leader. But it was, I think, the one key about him, as Bob Weir would put it, we're the band that's not afraid to be wrong. And the thing about the Dead was, music wasn't a commodity. Once upon a time, music was just hit singles on the radio on AM. And people like the Dead, I think, more than any other band. music was an adventure. Music was a place you can go to, a haven from everything else. And they always saw that as adventure. They tried never to repeat themselves. That was the key to the band. And I think that philosophy, I think you see in all these, this festival is filled with it, even all these years later. So there's a spirit there that lives on.
Great answer. I interviewed Jerry Garcia.
So I'm old. So, and I once did sound for Cab Calloway. That's another strange resume.
Y'all got hard, I bet. And then for Mr. Caveman, what's your favorite moment you witnessed underground, and what's your favorite thing you found underground? Starting this statement.
Yeah, God, favorite moment was 2000, I think it was 19, New Year's Eve, Flaming Lips inside of here. And my daughter, who's here in 14, I said, you need to come down and see this. And she wanted to stay and play Monopoly with my dad, which again, at her age, that was probably more fun than coming to this. But the next day, she says, how was the show? And I said, oh, it was great. And she said, what did I miss? I said, well, Maggie, he came into the cave riding on a giant dinosaur. He did? I said, oh yeah, but that's not all. What else did I miss? I said, at some point he was inside of a bubble and he walked through the whole cave. And she said, he did? And I said, oh yes he did, but that's not all. And she said, what else? And I said, at the stroke of midnight, and they didn't tell me this was happening or any of our people, at the stroke of midnight, they released 2019 balloons, and they were all filled with confetti, and they floated, and when they would hit a stalactite, they would bust, and it sat there and just rained confetti down on us for hours as the new year came in, and that was just like pretty damn tough to beat, I have to say. But at the other cave we used to do, the first show ever, was Chris Stapleton and the Steel Drivers, and nobody had ever even heard of him. So imagine the first show at the old cave was Chris Stapleton that nobody had heard of, and the first one here was Billy Strange, so better to be lucky than good, I guess. But
now, in the history of the cave, though, that was Billy's second time to play for you. He played in the old cave.
He did.
And he opened for Michael Cleveland.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Michael Cleveland is, now Michael Cleveland may be my most favorite musical moment in the cave when he did Rye Whiskey unaccompanied, and just him on the stage. I think they turned the lights down. That was magical.
Michael's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Anybody else? Go ahead there.
Chronicles has been known decades ago as the world's largest open-air chop shop for
Yep.
stolen cars. But I think this enterprise you got here is brought the family's economic engine or vitality up quite a bit. Maybe even from one category to another. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, it's so funny. When so we used to be in another cave, and we outgrew that cave. I didn't own that cave. The guy that did was a real problem, and they wouldn't even let us sell beer. Imagine trying to make $1 in the music business, can't even have a damn cold beer and watch music. So I said to Joe Lurgio, my right hand, I said, Joe, there's 8,000 caves in the state. We got to find one. And he heard about this cave through a caver friend of his named Buck. It wasn't on a map in Grundy County, Tennessee. And I never will forget Googling Grundy County, Tennessee as a city mouse, and went to the Wikipedia page, and it was exactly what you said. Actually, I live in Grundy County. I live up on the mountain now, and I don't call it a haircut for obvious reasons. I just call it a head shave. But the place I go is called the Chop Shop because they've got a sense of humor about that. But Grundy was notorious as a place nationwide that you damn sure don't leave your car or stop for anything in Grundy County, and all sorts of history, and you can Google it yourself, with bombs blowing up. A lot of times in Grundy County, if they didn't like something, well, they just blew it the fuck up. And that was scary to me, you know, and I'm like, uh-oh. And so I'll tell you a story. When we announced we were going from McMinnville over here, we couldn't, we made this big announcement on this one day, and we had all the Grundy County, the mayor and the council people and the state senator and all that. Everybody was gathered together, local business people, and we made the announcement. And Joe Lurgio, my right-hand man, I tease him that he's from Road Hampshire. but I still don't know which it is. But he's a Manwood player and about to play outside there. But when we came out of that meeting, I said, "So Joe, how you think that went?" He said, "Todd, I've never heard an unironic praise Jesus in my life." I said, "Welcome to Grundy County, Joe." And people were literally falling down. Praise Jesus, praise Him. You know, they were so thankful and grateful that we were coming here. And I remember them saying to us, "Todd, we might be poor, but we all pull in the same direction." And the people they have some of the finest people, awesome people. We've gotten to know so many of them. It's just, we even have a saying, it's like, we just go Grundy, man, do it Grundy style. And that's just make shit happen and do it and get it done, man. And I've learned a lot, the people that I've met here. And the thing that makes me the most proud is this statistic. 73% of all our patrons, and if we surveyed y'all in this room, it'd be the same thing, are from outside the state of Tennessee. And so by that metric, we're the country's largest destination music venue by far. I've talked to the folks at Red Rocks, they're like 20%, the Ryman's like 10%. So people are coming from all over to have this magic, mythic experience, musical experience inside this cave in Grundy County. And man, last year, for the first time ever, Grundy County got off the distressed county, economic distress list. And I'll say, y'all are all staying somewhere. One day you'll stay here. If I dream a genie a lodge here, I'd do it, but we're still working on getting water and sewage. But I love that people are going and staying all over and spending their money. And, you know, it's just freaking awesome. So it makes my heart just
one person can make a difference. I think that's a lesson here.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank y'all. If anybody does want to buy the book, I'll be back there. I'll be happy to sign it. And I will say one thing. When that's done, go check out the
Three Tall Pines.
That's Joe Bird's show.
Freaking awesome. Joe turned this place around. A great musician, great band out of Boston. And starting in about 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes, 2:30. Don't miss it.
What time is it?
It is 2:14.
All right, we're good then. Thanks, everybody.